Hi everyone, Suzanne here. I hope you're all well and welcome to So Custom. Today's video is going to be my March 2019 mix video. So if you're interested in seeing that, then let's get started. So I had one plan for March, and that was to make a Chanel style jacket. So that was the end goal. To get to that end goal, I wanted to try out a couple of different patterns, see which ones suited me, which ones felt the best and which ones fit the best. I wanted to try out some trims and that quilted lining of the Chanel jacket. So I did all that. So I shall kick off with the first thing that I made this month, and that was this one. So you'll remember from my plans video that I made a princess seamed bodice jacket from the jacket block that I had already created last year, and I'd mentioned that jacket block had way too much ease in it for one of these types of jackets. So for this one, my starting point was my dress block, and I just sort of played around with that block myself, added a little bit of ease here and there in order to come up with this jacket. So it has princess seams, a two-piece sleeve, it's fully lined, just a basic facing inside, and then I played about with some trims. These trims are cut on the straight grain, which gives this type of effect, and I really like that. I also used the same trims on the cuffs, popped some really basic pockets on the front, and also added those trims there. So I think you can see from this that this one isn't quite right. So the fit sort of all over isn't quite right. I think when I was patterning this one and I was adding that ease that I mentioned, I didn't distribute it evenly. So the center front comes nicely to the center at the top, so near the neck, but then below the bust and down to the hem, it doesn't come to the center. So the fit is way off. Also, I didn't like how the sleeves fit into the armhole in this one. They're quite puffy along the top, and I didn't like that for this design. So this one, not wearable. So I then moved on to number 2. So you'll remember from my plans video that I wanted to try out a couple of patterns. So this was my attempt at one of those patterns. So this one has side panels both front and back. It has a really small bust dart and it's nicely sort of fitted around the waist. This one I tried out the full length sleeve. Still a two-piece sleeve, just that little bit longer. And this one I attempted to distribute that ease I mentioned throughout the pattern a little bit better and a little bit more balanced, and I do think I've managed to do that, but the fit still isn't quite right. So again, there's a bit of a problem with the sleeve fitting into the arm, and the fit overall just isn't the way I would want it to be. So I did do the same thing with the trims, so I tried out those same trims again. This one I didn't put a facing in, I just lined right up to the center front. So this one is a little bit more wearable than the first one I made, but I don't think I'll wear this one either. So then I moved on to number 3. And this one, because I'd had 2 attempts now at trying to pattern this myself, so trying to add that bit of ease to the dress block myself and not being that successful with it, I thought I would refer back to some of the books that I have. So I used the Pattern Cutting Made Easy by Gillian Holman. It is a fabulous book. I love it, and it had a method laid out really straightforwardly of how to change your dress block into a jacket block, which was exactly what I was attempting to do on my first 2 toiles. So I followed that method, came up with my jacket block, and it is perfect. Like, the fit is so nice, really love it. So I mentioned there was 2 patterns that I was trying to recreate this month. So this is the second one, and this was made from this same jacket block. This just has 1 bust dart, no fitting throughout the waist. It comes to just below my waist, and for this one I gave myself a 2-piece 3/4 length sleeve. Gave myself those same pockets and then played around with those trims again. This one has a really basic facing. It's fully lined, and when this was made, I was so happy with it. Just because the fit is so nice. It's super comfortable. So that's that one. So super happy with that. So once I had that done, I knew I had that pattern perfected. So I was then able to move on to my final version of this sort of boxy style. So you will already have seen this, I imagine. So this I uploaded, I think 2 weeks ago. So this is exactly the same pattern. This pattern actually I uploaded how I made it, how I made the block as well. So I uploaded that last week. I'll link all of these below, but this jacket I absolutely love. So the fabric is super nice. It's quite a structured fabric, which I think fits this design perfectly. It has that basic facing inside and then this beautiful vibrant green lining. And the lining, actually, I used a 100% viscose voile for this. And the reason I used that and not something sort of more shiny and slippery is because I knew I wanted to wear this in the spring, summer, and I wanted to wear it with like a camisole or some sort of little vest underneath, and I didn't want anything too shiny and sort of hot and sweaty against the skin for that type of weather. So super pleased with how this one turned out. I will definitely make more of these. I can see these in a longer length, maybe playing about with some pockets. I love this. So that was my final version of the little boxy design. So I then thought I would move on to something a little bit more Chanel-esque. So I came up with this one. So this one, I just love it. So you'll remember from my plans video that there was a jacket in there. It was a boxy shape of a jacket, but it had the 4 pockets. So it had pockets at the breast and pockets at the waist. And that was the one I was trying to recreate with this one. So I'll pop some pictures in so that you guys can see a bit better. So this one is exactly the same pattern again. So this just has the little bust darts and quite a boxy shape. It has the 2-piece 3/4 length sleeve. The difference between this one and the previous ones I've shown is how I constructed it. So this fabric was a really loose weave of a fabric. You could nearly see through some of the fibres in it. So I decided what I would do to give it a little bit more structure was interface the whole thing. So I interfaced every piece, but on the bias. I got that tip from a fantastic blog post, which I shall link down below. I used that blog post for quite a few things this month. And what they had outlined in this blog post is that if you interface all your pieces on the bias, you'll still get that nice drape to the fabric, but it will ensure that the fibres all sit in the place they're supposed to sit in. So I love that tip. So as I say, interface the whole thing. I then quilted all of my pieces. So this was my second attempt at the quilting, and I really love how this turned out. The quilting just makes everything just so comfortable. It's so neat and tidy inside. Just love that. And then for trims on this one, I did the trims slightly differently to the previous ones I've shown. So in this one, I cut strips of fabric on the bias rather than on the straight grain, and then just frayed those edges. This gives you a little bit of a fuller trim than the previous, and I really like the look of that and thought it suited this fabric nicely. So I edged that trim with a little bit of cord, just some standard black cord, and then hand stitched that on the whole way around the neck. I gave the same treatment to the little flaps on the pockets, and then the pockets themselves are just really basic, nicely sort of curved along the bottom. As I say, I put 2 at the waist and 2 at the breast. I added some simple little black buttons. These are just self-covered buttons. And I think I have managed to recreate my inspiration. So I absolutely love this one. So I made this one. I did a little sort of mini video that I uploaded to Insta Stories. I think it's still there. I think it's on my highlights if you want to take a look at that, because it shows a bit more of the construction. I took photographs of it, all of that. As I say, absolutely loved the jacket. And then I was looking at the photos and I could see something was sort of going wrong around here, and I could not for the life of me work it out. And then I realised I've put a bust dart in the outer fabric, which is making that fabric sort of have that nice curve that you need for that little bit of fitting around your bust. So I've done that in the outer fabric, and then I've just went ahead and quilted right over the top of it. So the quilting over the top of it is taking a flat piece of fabric, popping it onto a 3D piece of fabric, and then stitching those together. So I'm distorting then the outer fabric that has the sort of 3D effect and that bust dart. So you guys probably wouldn't notice that, and if I was wearing this on the street, nobody would notice that. But I know that it's there, and it is a big mistake, a really stupid mistake that I should not have made, but I did. So it's wearable, 100% wearable, but it's always going to be in my head that I made that mistake. So anyway, I do love it. I love the overall look. I love the whole construction of it. I learned loads making this, and I will wear it and try and put that mistake out of my head. But anyway, so that's that one. So I then felt that I was a little bit more ready to move on to something more close to my end design. So this wasn't my final design. This was me wanting to try out a few more techniques. So the next one I came up with was this one. So I'll pop some pictures in and let you see a little bit closer. So the fabric for this one I didn't show in my plans video because when I got to this point in this whole project, I had ran out of 12 fabrics to use. So this was from my stash. I've no idea where I got it from. It's some sort of wool blend, I imagine. And it has this window pane design, and the window panes are made up of this glittery wool. So in terms of design, this one has princess seams. This was designed from the starting point of the jacket block that I had previously drafted. It just has a facing and then it's fully lined with this beautiful, beautiful colour of green satin fabric. And I love the contrast of that with the outer. But the things I wanted to try out on this was, number one, a 3-piece sleeve. So I had previously drafted myself a 3-piece sleeve and hadn't yet sewn it up, so I wasn't sure whether it was going to work or not. The 3-piece sleeve was drafted from the sleeve block. So just the standard sleeve block, not the tailored block or anything like that, just the standard woven sleeve block. And I did that purposefully because I wanted the 3-piece sleeve to be a little bit more fitted. The previous sleeves I've used, so those tailored sleeves, are a little bit looser, and I knew I definitely wanted this to be a little bit closer fitted. And this worked out so nicely. Like, it fits beautifully into the armhole. It has just the right amount of ease that I was looking for, so it was giving me that nice fitted look that I was after. And the reason why a lot of Chanel jackets are made using 3-piece sleeves is so that you can see the detail at the cuff. I added a little split just to the bottom of the sleeve and then trimmed it. I'll talk about the trim a bit more in a second. So love that 3-piece sleeve. Definitely using that in my final design. And then a couple of more construction techniques I wanted to try out on this one. So some of the previous versions I had made, especially the ones that had princess seams, seemed to collapse a little bit around the chest area, just from sort of the bust upwards. And when I was trying to research this and just try to see what was wrong with my jacket, I came across chest shields. And chest shields are just a strip of interfacing that is cut on the bias to the shape of the upper chest. And what they do is they provide a little bit more structure in that area and help to prevent the fabric from sort of collapsing at the top of the chest. So this was the first I have heard of these, and I cannot tell you the difference it makes. So I absolutely love that. 100% will be using that in my final version. And then when I was researching those chest shields, I came across sleeve heads. So I hadn't come across sleeve heads before, and when I was reading about them I thought they sounded good, and I thought I would give them a go in this jacket. So a sleeve head is just a strip of wadding really, and the purpose of them is to provide a little bit of structure at the very top of the sleeve. So sometimes if you put a jacket on that doesn't have a sleeve head in it, the top of the sleeve won't sit 100% nice, so it will sort of collapse in at the top as well. And what the sleeve head does is give that tiny little bit of structure there, just so the fabric just sits exactly the way it was designed to sit. So if I put a side by side of the little blue jacket I made earlier and this jacket, hopefully you can see the difference that these couple of construction techniques make. So the blue one, you'll see the chest there is collapsing in. On the black one, hopefully you can see that that's not happening. And then the sleeve head as well. So the sleeve head in the blue one, well, number one, it's ill-fitting. But number two, I think you can see that at the very top, the fabric sort of goes in a bit before it goes out over the arm. And the sleeve head is helping to push that little bit of fabric out which hopefully you can see on the black one. So they were all the sort of new techniques I wanted to try out, and I was super happy with all of them. I'm using every single one of those from now on. But in terms of design, the only other things I did here was add a couple of breast pockets and a couple of waist pockets. I added hooks and eyes the whole way up the centre front, so I think I've got 4 there. Made myself some buttons, covered those buttons with the outer fabric and then trimmed them with that glittery wool from the outer fabric. And then for the trims themselves, I used exactly the same method as I'd used in the little check number, the one I showed previous. I cut strips of fabric on the bias, frayed them, and then for the braid in the centre of the trim, I just plaited and twisted some of the wools that I had pulled out of the outer fabric to make the trims. I added a couple of buttons to the cuff as well, and for this one I trimmed the whole way around the hem. So this one, I just love how it's turned out. So that's that one. So I do still have my final version to make. I haven't started it yet. So I hope to start that perhaps this weekend. I'm waiting on a couple more supplies to come. So once they arrive, I shall get stuck in and film that. So that should be up on my channel over the next sort of maybe 2 or 3 weeks or so. So just before I go, there was one other thing that I wanted to mention. I wanted to say thank you to those of you that responded to the poll that I posted last night. So today is Wednesday. I posted that poll on Tuesday, and lots of you guys either ticked the box or left comments. So I did that poll because I was doing a quick review of my channel, the types of videos I have on my channel, the types of videos you guys seem to give a thumbs up to, so the ones that you tell me that you like, and the ones that maybe I felt weren't so popular. The poll has sort of dispelled that. So the results of that poll were to keep as is, so to stick with the status quo. I think it was something like 70% or 60 something percent were all of the above. So all of the above meant I want to see plans videos, I want to see making of videos, patterning videos, and monthly makes videos. So I shall keep with the status quo for another little while, and then maybe I'll do another poll again, maybe 3 or 4 months down the line, and we'll see how we're getting on between us. I really hope you guys enjoyed the makes video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you've not yet subscribed, please do, and I shall see you on Friday in my next one. Until then, I hope you have a fantastic week. Bye folks!